We have got to get to what seems like the week's biggest celebrity story. What seems like a sudden breakup between Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, married for 19 years.
Nicole Kidman didn't just tolerate Keith Urban's cheating, she allegedly built a marriage around it. And now the question isn't just why he betrayed her, but why she let it happen for 19 years. If we're asking how it got this far, we don't have to look any further than the so-called open secret floating through Nashville since long before either of them decided to call the lawyers. Urban's separation, as TMZ insiders bluntly put it, was inevitable because he'd already moved on, not just with one woman, but with a pattern of behavior so blatant it's hard to believe anyone close to the couple didn't see it coming. If Hollywood likes to pretend that affairs only get discovered through grainy tabloid photos, Keith Urban threw that idea out the window in April 2025 during a Las Vegas performance. There, in front of a crowd and a wall of camera phones, he pointed straight at his 25-year-old guitarist Maggie Baugh and sang, "Maggie, I'll be your guitar player." But herself was quick to post the clip on Instagram, adding her own fire to the speculation with the not-so-innocent caption, "Did he just say that?" If this was subtlety, Urban's never met the concept.
Keith has a woman that he plays, that he performs with. She's one of his guitarists. She is 25 years old. Her name is Maggie. There is some thought that he could be in a relationship with her or in, some sort of romantic setup with her. We were told that before anyone said Maggie's name, we were told by people who were close to Nicole that they felt that he had moved on with another.
But that moment wasn't a blip, and it wasn't some one-off. We can see now that this was the latest in a long parade of questionable behavior. The evidence isn't just what Urban did, but how comfortable he became doing it in the open. Industry sources say the Nashville community barely blinked. Urban flaunted his flings in plain sight, with Baugh just the freshest face in a pattern that everyone, except maybe Nicole Kidman, seemed willing to accept. When we line up the timeline, the idea that Kidman was blindsided falls apart faster than Urban's old guitar strings. He's been accused of having side relationships since before the ink dried on their wedding license. Back in 2006, not even 4 months after they got married, rumors of an affair with model Amanda Wyatt started swirling. Urban denied it, Kidman stood by him. And then came the rehab stint that set the tone for the next 2 decades. We're told she was the one who staged the intervention, flying in from Rome and confronting him with his friends in a last-ditch effort to hold the marriage together.
Although I am surprised, I think these two seemed a really steady couple. 19 years in Hollywood is a million years, and so I think we were surprised. However, people that have been in the know, people that have been the boots on the ground, they're not as surprised by this. They had a really, really messy start within months of their marriage. He was in rehab, they've admitted this, so they were married a few months and he went to the Betty Ford clinic and disappeared.
Yeah.
That's not tabloid invention, that's on the record, and even Urban's talked about it. The headlines at the time painted Kidman as a martyr for love, but now, nearly 20 years later, we're supposed to believe this was all a surprise? After his 3 months in treatment in 2006, he went back on tour and the whispers never really went away. Insiders from Nashville say that after every storm, Kidman just kept moving the goalposts. In public, she played the supportive spouse, but anyone on the inside saw a marriage built on endless forgiveness, private agreements, and, according to persistent rumors, a prenuptial clause that tied Urban's multi-million-dollar payout to his ability to steer clear of substances. The so-called substance clause wasn't a myth. It's in the prenup, allegedly guaranteeing Urban $900,000 for every year of marriage, so long as he kept clean. Maybe that was the plan? Maybe that's why, even when the rumors heated up about Maggie Baugh, Kidman was still pushing to save the marriage, not end it.
A really rough relationship, and that's why I'm curious about the clause in the contract. Nicole knew very, very early on that Keith had demons.
Fast forward to May 2025, and the evidence gets sharper. Baugh joined Urban's High and Alive tour as the new guitarist, a decision that sent industry observers scrambling for the backstory. By July, Urban was already moved out of the family's Nashville mansion, leaving Kidman and their 2 teenagers to weather the storm, which by then was less a crisis and more just another Tuesday in the Urban-Kidman household. The Daily Mail reported a near-constant rotation of visitors and musical equipment at Bach's rented house in an upmarket Nashville enclave. Urban, for all his supposed connections to the place, was nowhere to be seen. Why? Because he didn't need to be. As one neighbor put it, the traffic wasn't exactly the stuff of clandestine rendezvous, but the optics were bad enough. Chuck Baugh, Maggie's own father, didn't do Urban any favors when he told reporters it's more of a musician thing than a dating thing. And then immediately followed with the admission, but I haven't heard one way or the other. In other words, even the family of the alleged mistress can't categorically deny that something's up. When the people closest to the situation can't or won't say what's actually going on. What does that tell us about how many other Maggies Kidman might have quietly ignored over the years?
Yesterday, people were quite shocked about this news, and some people said that this came out of nowhere. Some other people have now come forward and said this was a long time.
This wasn't some backwoods mystery for the tabloids to make up in the dark. The Nashville set had been chattering for months. TMZ said Urban's band and crew all knew something was off. Maggie Bach herself, when confronted by the online firestorm, disappeared from Urban's next show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. One day she's getting serenaded, the next she's MIA, and fans are flooding her socials with accusations of being a homewrecker. We can't ignore that she reportedly already had a boyfriend, Cameron Coley, but that didn't stop the rumors or the speculation about Urban's real intentions. If you believe the timeline, Baugh moved out of her old apartment with Coley in early 2025, upgraded to a rental near a Nashville golf course, and saw a steady stream of vans and musical gear coming and going. Neighbors saw her, but never Urban, as if the story was being staged for plausible deniability.
This shocked, I think, a lot of people earlier in the week. So we did a story that Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, after almost 20 years of marriage, they would have celebrated their 20th anniversary in 2026, that they had separated, but that we were told Nicole really still wanted to try and make the marriage work.
Meanwhile, Nicole Kidman was left to keep up appearances. On October 1, just after filing for divorce, she was spotted hiking in Nashville with her sister Antonia. This wasn't the devastated, broken ex-wife people might have expected. Kidman laughed, gestured, and seemed more animated than we've seen her in months. The images, snapped by the Daily Mail, looked almost like relief. But if she was finally ready to move on, Urban wasn't exactly looking back. While Kidman was out in public handling her end of the PR game, Urban played the Hershey show without Baugh. Like the affair or whatever it was had outlived its usefulness. We're left with the uncomfortable sense that Baugh was just the most visible tip of the iceberg, a role Urban had no trouble replacing the moment it became a liability. Sources familiar with the crew say the dynamic on tour had become toxic and that Urban's firing of his entire band in January, ending a 25-year run with the same musicians, only underscored the chaos behind the scenes.
And the headlines in the media are all over the place. And you know how it is in these celebrity feuds, especially when it comes to divorce. We always have to find the bad guy. And everyone's desperately trying to find out who's to blame.
What's striking is how many people around the couple insist that none of this was new. Friends, family, even the crew saw the pattern. One neighbor in Nashville told the Daily Mail that it really hasn't been a secret that Urban and Kidman were living separate lives, both literally and figuratively. Urban rented his own place in Nashville, while Kidman stayed in the mansion, keeping the family together while he made himself scarce. For Kidman, this was supposed to be the payoff after 19 years of loyalty and public support. A marriage that survived scandals, interventions, and no small number of whispered betrayals. Instead, she was left to file the papers alone, listing irreconcilable differences as the official reason, while sources quietly confirmed to people that she didn't want this and was fighting to save the marriage until the very end.
So I got on the phone with some of my Australian sources, and nobody else was surprised. I was surprised. I think the fans are surprised. The public at large is surprised, especially because they're so ubiquitous. I mean, they are really everywhere all the time. But they have not been living together for months, apparently.
So now we're left with the real question. Why did Nicole Kidman, a woman who staged interventions and fought to rehabilitate her husband not once but repeatedly, keep tolerating this? Was it just about the kids? Sunday Rose, now 17, and Faith Margaret, 14, who were both teenagers and, according to family sources, have been inseparable from their mother throughout the ordeal. Was it about maintaining her public image, or was there some deeper trade-off that only those closest to the couple understand? The financial angle certainly can't be ignored. Urban's prenup reportedly guaranteed him over $17 million in payouts thanks to the substance clause, but only if he stayed clean. So was Kidman the enabler, the loyal wife, or just a shrewd negotiator protecting her own interests? The sources who watch this marriage unravel say it's not so simple. They insist Kidman was betrayed, shocked, and yet, in the final days, surprisingly calm. When she stepped out in Dallas just days after the filing to present an award at the Amphar Gala, she looked poised, maybe even relieved. Friends say she didn't want this, but it's hard not to notice how quickly she's moved to reclaim her independence, focusing on work, planning travel, and making sure her daughters are seen with her at high-profile events like Paris Fashion Week.
So now, as far as I understand, he's the one that won it out, and she was kind of gaslighted by it all. Is that the way you see it too, or understand this, that he was the one who actually, and she was a bit surprised by it, or?
That's what all the reports are saying that are coming out now. So, of course, as soon as I heard this news, I was like, okay, first Hugh Jackman and now Nicole Kidman.
But behind that confident facade, the wounds are raw. We know that Kidman's family, especially her sister Antonia, has rallied around her. The insider reports make clear that the Kidman clan has closed ranks, providing a kind of emotional buffer as the press keeps poking at the carcass of a once admired marriage. And yet, if we're being honest, the idea that Kidman was simply blindsided doesn't hold up. Not with so many insiders calling Urban's infidelity an open secret. Not with band associates and even Boggs' own father unable to deny the rumors outright. Not when Urban has a long track record of walking right up to the line and daring anyone to call him out. If the cheating was this obvious, if the band, the crew, and even the supposed other woman's family couldn't deny it, why did Nicole Kidman keep playing the role of the devoted wife? And more importantly, what did she get out of it?
So, I'm going to speak to a little bit about a particular view I get of Nick for a long time now. But I'll start with the fact that we met in January 2005. We were being honoured at this event called G'day LA, which sounds a bit like a pickup line from Crocodile Dundee.
Because as we look at the wreckage of this marriage, what we see isn't just a breakup, but a pattern of silent agreements, the kind that go unspoken in public but shape everything behind closed doors. And the moment we start to piece together the timeline, the early rehab, the onstage serenades, the rotating cast of rumored companions, and the well-timed divorce filings, we're forced to wonder just how many cracks there were beneath the surface, and how long everyone involved was willing to pretend it wasn't falling apart. Even now, as Urban continues his tour and Kidman moves forward with her career, there are whispers that this scandal is only scratching the surface. If sources close to the couple are right, and this has been an open secret for years, then what does it say about the world Kidman was willing to inhabit and the game Urban played so well? The stakes aren't just personal. The legal fallout looms large. With custody of 2 teenagers, a multi-million-dollar prenup, and public reputations on the line, every move becomes a calculated risk. The narrative, for now, is Kidman trying to rise above the chaos, Urban avoiding the bottle and focusing on co-parenting, and Ba doing her best to disappear from the drama she was pulled into. But the Nashville rumor mill doesn't sleep. Insiders claim Urban's latest moves, firing his longtime band, rewriting lyrics on stage, and cozying up to new musical collaborators, signal a man in the midst of a full-blown crisis. Some even point to the ripple effect from Hugh Jackman's divorce, suggesting that when one high-profile marriage collapses, others start to crack under the pressure. It's the domino effect of celebrity implosions, and no one wants to be the last one standing in a shrinking circle of denial.
When I formulated a hypothesis about famous people who marry famous people, and that the only way it can work is if one of them is willing to be the less famous. You cannot have 2 egos coexisting at the same time.
So as we dig deeper, the contradictions keep piling up. Urban claims he's only focused on his daughters, but insiders say he's rarely seen at the family home. Kidman appears composed and in control, but friends describe her as devastated and betrayed. Maggie Baud has gone silent, and even her own boyfriend has gone MIA from her social media feeds. The tabloids keep asking if this is really about just one affair, or if it's a much bigger story of a marriage built on secrets everyone agreed not to mention. And now, as we wait for the next court filing, the next Instagram slip, or the next anonymous source to spill a new layer of scandal, we're left hanging, trying to figure out just how deep this story really goes. The answer might be hiding in plain sight. Because Nicole Kidman's marriage to Keith Urban wasn't just about love. It was a transaction, and the moment he stopped playing by her rules, she filed for divorce. We can't ignore the money trail. The infamous substance clause prenup, allegedly signed before their 2006 wedding, wasn't just for show. Urban was reportedly paid $900,000 for every year he kept his side of the bargain. Total sobriety, or the deal was off. By the time the marriage collapsed, he stood to walk away with nearly $17 million. That isn't a romance, it's a business contract with a public face and a private countdown clock. According to Radar Online, Urban's sobriety was the linchpin. If Kidman was willing to pay millions to keep him straight, what else was she prepared to sweep under the rug? Affairs? Affairs with the help? Public humiliation during a live tour? The numbers suggest the answer is yes.
Maybe it was Keith. They certainly were very effusive. In fact, to the point of the constant kissing, the constant social media gushing, the very demonstrative behavior, both in person and...
But the deeper you dig, the uglier it gets. Urban's demons weren't a secret, but most fans never heard just how out of control things were. Urban's former songwriting partner, Vernon Rust, pulled back the curtain in his memoir, claiming that back in the late 90s, he and Urban once burned through $320,000 on substances in a single jaw-dropping bin. If you're trying to picture what that looks like, don't bother. The point is, Urban's vices were never just a phase, and no amount of Kidman's cash or boundaries could fully leash them. This is the reality Kidman signed up for. Did she convince herself she could manage the risk, or did she decide it was a price worth paying for the image of a marriage that worked?
I have a little surprise episode for you guys, because this morning Nelson Aspen contacted me and he was like, we have to talk about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's split. So Nelson actually was in their wedding almost 20 years ago, and he's got a lot of insight he wanted to share with you guys. If you're new here, Nelson is an award-winning.
The dynamic between these two isn't just codependent, it's chessboard-level psychological warfare. We remember Kidman after her split from Tom Cruise, arms in the air, the picture of triumphant escape, the meme that never fades. She spun her way out of Cruise's shadow and barely a year later tied herself to Urban, a man whose public relapse came almost immediately. She didn't just ignore the warning signs, she went all in. And every time Urban blew up his own stability, she doubled down on saving the relationship, whether it was calling interventions or sticking by him through another tabloid firestorm. TMZ's insiders put it bluntly, Kidman was fighting to save the marriage, even as Urban was showing no signs of wanting reconciliation. For nearly 2 decades, she played the fixer, the rescuer, the woman who could make it work. The reality was more complex. We see the pattern now: endless forgiveness, contractual consequences, a balancing act between public adoration and private agony.
So, I'm doing that more. And I say that to other people in the world, yes, and particularly women, I think. We tend not to take care of ourselves. We'll take care of everybody else, but the last person is.
Then came Urban's 2025 midlife rebellion, when the playbook changed overnight. He didn't just distance himself, he blew up his whole foundation. In January, he fired his entire band of 25 years, a move even longtime roadies described as shocking and out of character. Within months, he bought himself a solo house in Nashville, severed ties with old friends, and started telling anyone who asked that he was fine. What he wasn't doing, according to sources close to the family, was showing up for his daughters. While Kidman held the family together, managing the fallout, shuttling the teens to events, and trying to shield them from the media, Urban was rarely seen and never at the mansion he once called home. We have to ask, was this really about another woman? Or was Urban determined to torch the whole arrangement on his own terms? The question isn't just why Urban cheated, but why Kidman let him do it for this long. Was it the prenup, the fear of another high-profile divorce, or something deeper? A need to control the narrative after being humiliated so publicly by Cruise 2 decades earlier. Some insiders whisper that Kidman felt she could outmaneuver the tabloids and keep the family name spotless if she just endured a little longer. But the evidence was stacking up and the cracks were widening. Urban's recent public statements, few and carefully worded, made it clear he was finished with the performance of marriage. He told friends not to worry about a relapse, but refused to talk about dating or reconciliation. Even when pushed, he stayed silent about Bob, let his PR team deny nothing, and made sure everyone knew he was ready to move on. If there was a game being played, Urban had quit before the final round.
So I'm quite erratic in my choices. There's no method to the madness. There's just a lot of spontaneity, and then the desire to always go and do something that I feel excited about. Because time, as you get older, becomes the most...
So why did Kidman finally pull the trigger? The answer seems cold, but it's staring us in the face. Urban didn't just cheat. He stopped letting Kidman control the story. He moved out, dropped the act, and left her holding a marriage she could no longer spin. The moment she lost that power, she filed. It wasn't about heartbreak, it was about leverage. We're left to wonder if Kidman tolerated nearly 2 decades of affairs, substance battles, and public embarrassment. What was she really getting in return? Was it just money, custody of the girls, or was there something buried even deeper in the fine print of that infamous prenup? Here's the twist that nobody wants to say out loud. Maybe it was never really about Urban's betrayal, but about Kidman's need to stay in control at any cost. If so, what does that say about a marriage where everything, loyalty, forgiveness, even humiliation, has a price tag? Was it security, status, or the illusion of the perfect Hollywood ending? Or was there a side deal we haven't uncovered yet, a secret so toxic that both parties preferred the circus to the exposure? No one is saying, but the silence from both camps is deafening. Every unanswered question, every tiptoeing comment from friends and family adds another layer to the mystery. We can't help but watch as both sides start rebuilding their narratives. Kidman as the aggrieved survivor, Urban as the man who got out just in time. Now the pieces are scattered, the lawyers are sharpening their pencils, and the world's waiting to see what comes out in the wash. Maybe there's a buried confession in a vault somewhere in Nashville. Maybe the real story will come out in memoirs or a single offhand comment years from now. For now, all we know is this. Nicole Kidman didn't file for divorce because Keith Urban cheated. She filed because for the first time in 19 years, he stopped letting her control the narrative. But here's the real scandal. If she tolerated his affairs, his substance problems, and his humiliation for this long, what was she getting in return? And is the answer buried in a prenup or something far darker? What do you think? Was this just about money and control, or are we missing the real story behind Hollywood's biggest breakup? Drop your hottest theory in the comments because you know we'll be watching. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your secret safer than the Urban Kidman prenup.